This is part 4 of how to make visual notes, pulling it all together. So as you can see in the last one, part 3, we were just looking at how to add some more detail to the visual note. And I talked about which iPad applications I like to use and which iPad apps other people use. And really it's about trying to find the one that works for you. So paper 53 is really nice in terms of different little booklets. You can use a zoom in tool and it gives a nice watercolor effect. I prefer Adobe Ideas. As you can see, it's very versatile and it's the one that I've got used to over the last year or more. Penultimate is a very simple app that you might prefer to start out on, or Notability, where you can embed photographs and annotate those, also InkFlow and New Notes Plus. So what I'm going to do now is just where it says paper 53, I'm going to try and hand draw the little logo, the little icon. So I go back to the photo layer, click on Google and find the paper 53 logo. Just make it a little bit more transparent. But then what you can do, if you keep it at its full color, you can pick up the color droplet tool and then it will pick up the exact color. As you can see here, I'm trying to match the different color tones and try and just scribble some of those over the top so that I can get a similar effect. Some of it doesn't really work very well, so I'm just having a bit of a doodle. It doesn't really matter, it's a tiny little part of my visual note. And then I'm just moving the layer so I can see the 53 and using the eraser tool to see how that will look on top of the doodles. And then when I look at those doodles, I figure that I haven't really done it very well at all, so I need to go back in again and add some perhaps more opaque colouring. So I've got a bit more depth to the colour. And then again, put the logo in front, and maybe this time try white, just to see if it stands out a little bit better. It takes a few goes, but in the end, you can get something that you're a little bit happier with. So in this case, I need to get rid of the grey around it, and then I'll have a look at doing the Adobe Ideas logo, which is much more simple. So again, as before, find the logo, drop it underneath, get it to the right size, and then I'm going to colour match. I'm just going to colour the whole thing with the brown, but then put the lighter areas over the top, just very simply. Here comes the brown all the way over, and then I'll go to the layers and just move the layer so that the light one comes on top. There it is. And that's a very simple way of creating a little logo, just neatening a few bits up. Now I'm just having a look and seeing what else I can add in terms of visuals to the visual note. So I thought I might add some thought bubbles. And I found a nice simple one here that just frames those areas where there's a little bit of text. So I'm just going to try this image out. Just again, to keep my color palette the same, I'm going to use the light grey and the brush tool and just quickly sketch around that and the little bubbles and just see how that looks with my text. And I think that looks okay. It doesn't stand out too much, it just gently frames that. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a copy of it just by clicking that little thing at the top and then drag that copy, which is on a new layer now, and drag it down to the other area I want to frame. And I think it looks a bit strange like this, so I think I'll just flip it and then that looks a lot better. I've got a bit of symmetry again to my visual note. I'm just resizing it and making sure it looks right and seeing whether I need to add something else to the notes about structure. So it's really difficult to think ahead to your visual note how you want it to look overall. I mentioned about the big picture, and so for me, as I'm making this up as I go along, it's interesting that I'm thinking to try and pull it all together. Always don't forget to put your name at the bottom, because lots of people might want to use this, or you might want to put it on Twitter. So again, just on another layer again, I'm just resizing this, and I'm going to put a little logo about Twitter and my Twitter handle. So just as before, I'm going to put in the photo layer at the right size that I want it. And then I guess I could leave it like that, but I prefer to do the whole lot by hand. So I'm just colouring the whole thing in blue first. And then I should be able to erase so I can see the white. And there's the little symbol. And I'm going back in with the same blue, just zooming in until I leave that area white. I've done this several times now, and it's not that difficult and pretty quick to do, as you can see. Using a slightly smaller nib just to get into those little tiny bits, being the perfectionist that I am. Neatening it up a little. Until I feel it looks right. And then from there I can put my Twitter name. It's all about art. And finally, how I produce this on an iPad and using Adobe Ideas. And that's really about it. When I look at the whole thing, I think maybe it hasn't got enough images on it, maybe there's something I've missed out. And just looking at the whole thing, I was happy with it, but I remembered that one of the things that people most ask me about is how I make a little animation. So I thought maybe I'd add a little film reel, maybe put that somewhere linking the areas together, and talk about how I can use brushes to animate a visual note or screencasting, a little bit like some of the RSA Animate series on the TED Talks. So here I am just adding again a very simple image and the final little bits of text, just deciding where best it would look. Screen recordings can be done very simply by airplaying your iPad, and there's the final thing. How to make visual notes using the iPad. I've been Nikki Hambleton. I hope you've enjoyed these demos.